Greetings from Longhorn Cavern State Park near Burnett, Texas, where we just wrapped up a tour of the signature feature at this park, which is the cavern that was formed naturally by a river, but then made accessible in the 1930s by work of the Civilian Conservation Corps, who had a camp here.
There are also a number of other features here at this park, including a well house, an observation tower, and an administration building that were also built by the CCC, making this a kind of a unique park because it has both natural and man-made features to it.
And I mentioned that the cavern was made accessible by the CCC, and to clarify, it was made accessible for tours. That's when they really kind of opened it up as part of the, getting people in there and giving them tours, which they do now regularly. It had been accessible and used by, I believe it was a Comanche tribe of Native Americans that were here originally, and many other people throughout the centuries. But now it is open for tours. It's about a 90-minute tour. They take you down in and show you this amazing structure that's actually unique, they said, because of the way it was carved out by a river that had gone through it.
I'm no cave expert. I've been in a few, but you'll really have to go on the tour to get the full history of how this one was formed differently than many other caverns that you might go into. But you'll still get to see the cool things like the stalagmites and the stalactites and the different formations of where that river moved through and how the water circulated and formed like upside down potholes and just layers in the rock and the calcite crystals. And it is a really cool experience. And people have been coming here for centuries, actually long before the CCC showed up, and even after the Native Americans came. People explored the cavern because that's what humans do. And so people found many entrances into the cavern. They went down there to take pictures. They at one point opened a restaurant down there, which is crazy to believe. They actually brought in live music and had bands and a dance floor in there for a couple of years. So it's actually really amazing, like how people got down there and what they were, able to do with the place. And then the CCC came in and cleaned it up because it had just been full of debris from all the water and everything that had been in there. So they actually made it more accessible, went further into the cave system and cleaned that all out. So it is more what we see today if you go on that tour. And it was really cool to go in there and see it. Unfortunately, we don't have any video of this cavern because one of the very first rules that they tell you when you start to go on the tour is still photography only. And it's really because they want you to watch your step where you're going. I mean, it is still an underground cavern. There are lights, but it is still pretty dim in there. It's a lot of uneven surfaces, really low places where you have to duck in a lot of places. And so they don't want you just, running around with a camera like, not watching your step. So we've got some still pictures and that's what you're going to see. So you'll really want to get here and check it out yourself.
Well, I was going to jump in and say too, even you had to duck a couple of times. So
I did.
It's pretty low in there.
They say that the shortest part is 4'4". And I think there's a 4'8" and 4'4", the two places they specifically tell you you'll have to duck. And I think those were the only two places that I had to duck in the entire thing. But yeah, I just thought it was a really neat experience to get in there.
If you're interested in going in the tour into the cavern, there are actually two available. There is sort of the standard 90-minute cavern tour that we took, and it's not ADA accessible, but I think pretty much anyone can do it as long as you can be on your feet for 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's about a mile round trip. But it's not like the tour guide said, you're not walking for 90 minutes. There's a lot of stopping, taking pictures, hearing an explanation of the cavern and the history of it. So I thought it was a really well done tour where they keep you moving through because they have a number of people lined up behind you trying to go in as groups. But there was enough time to really, I think, take it all in. So that was nice.
Yeah, I do not think that 90 minutes actually went by really fast, and yet it didn't at all. It was amazing. But you didn't feel rushed, I don't think. And on our tour, there was everything from senior citizens to a baby in arms and every little kid and ages in between. So as long as you are steady on your feet, you should be fine. There are some stairs getting in and out, and there are obviously the uneven surfaces. But
yeah, I do have video of the cavern entrance because we're able to get some of that. But once you go inside, you can't shoot video. And then I mentioned there's two tours. There is actually what they call the Wild Cave Tour, and that I think actually takes several hours and costs quite a bit more. But they take you in a smaller group and they take you through not just where everybody else gets to go, but there are areas of the cavern where they go down below in what they call sort of the basement area of the cavern. And there's a lot more crawling. That's a lot more physical activity. on that one.
And it sounds like, and you have to wear a helmet and gloves, and you're like hooked up to ropes. You're going to get muddy. I mean, there's a lot more requirements for that one. So we looked into it, but the money and the time that we had and everything, we decided it wasn't for us today. Maybe sometime in the future we'll get back to it. But we did see a group of those folks coming out of the tour, coming out of the cave when we were headed in for our tour. So that is a possibility. But otherwise, yeah, the tour is relatively accessible. They do ask you to wear closed-toed shoes because you are down in a cavern. It is a comfortable 68 degrees at all times. Now, I was fine in shorts, and then I threw a lightweight long sleeve shirt on just because I was a little chilled down there. It is kind of damp.
In terms of cost, the standard 90-minute tour, I believe, is around $22 a person. I don't remember exactly because we got the discount because we are Texas Parks pass holders, and that gives you a 10% discount. So again, another great use for that pass if you buy that as the annual pass. I think the Wild Cave tour was closer to $100 a person. So you got to be ready to spend that if you want to do it. And I would like to do that at some point. We'll find a way to do that at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole experience was really neat. And you also learn while you're down there about a bit of the history of the CCC working at this park because they cleared out so much debris. And it was just incredible to think of not only kind of the dark that they were working in because they were using candles and lanterns, unlike the electric lights we have now, but just the amount of debris and rock and everything that they had to pull out of those caverns.
The CCC pulled around 3,000 dump truck loads full of debris out of that cavern over the 3 years that they were here, as well as built the entrance to the cavern, sealed off some other entrances that people had used over the years that were no longer safe to get into, and then built the other structures here in the park. So they actually had a huge influence on making Longhorn Cavern, like I said, more of a public accessible place that was safe for all people to enjoy.
And they took it as far as they could. As I said, it's about a mile in, but our tour guide was telling us, I think it was 1914, that two guys went into the cavern and actually ended up going as far as they could until they came out the other side. And it's 8.5 miles long, but the CCC had to stop where the state park property line ends because otherwise you'd technically be trespassing as you're going under other people's property. So it'd be kind of a really neat experience to see what's back in that cavern that goes that 8 miles down.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the way Texas land and history goes, but pretty much every square inch of land in Texas is owned by somebody, and including all the mineral rights. And so especially down in a cavern, they couldn't cross that property line. And today the other end of it is essentially underwater because a dam and a lake were sort of built. And so that other end entrance 8 miles down is underwater. But yeah, oh my gosh, it would be so fun to be able to like go through the full length and see what you could find. I can imagine the stalactites and just all the features that are under there.
You mentioned other things that the CCC has done at this park. We mentioned some of the buildings that they had built here, and several are still here. One of the things I thought was cool is they actually have a prototype of a cabin that they were going to think about building for visitors to the parks like this. It was a prototype for state parks that they thought they might build these, stone cabins, and it was supposed to be built with whatever was available locally. So they have one. They built it here. It's still standing. Unfortunately, the plans changed, and they decided not to do those, and so it is unique. It's a one-of-a-kind cabin that's here. It's not, doesn't look like it's used for anything maybe, but for some storage, you can't go into it. But it's kind of neat to see what they were thinking and the design of it.
There's also an observation tower, and so you can climb up a spiral staircase to the top and get a kind of good view of the surrounding area, and as well as the original water tank house that's right next door. So the observation tower, well house, and water tank all kind of were right next to each other as part of the infrastructure here at the park, because that also served the boys who lived here at the CCC camp. They needed the water. So it's kind of cool that some of those structures though are still here.
It is neat to see their handiwork, and this is a day-use park, so there is no camping here, and the cabin never got open, so you can't use that. But about 6 miles down the road is Inks Lake State Park, and there is camping available there, along with many other things. We're going to go check it out, but we haven't been there yet, but I understand there are many other things to do there as well. So it could be kind of a neat way if you can get camping. We couldn't. There were no sites available, but if you can get camping sites there, and then maybe come over here for the day and spend some time here as well, that would be a nice combination to spend a weekend or a few days at. Keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.